So Ron Arad, he is active in a hybrid context. It seems he couldn't make up his mind to be an architect or an artist or a designer. So he works at the intersection between the three, and it's, I would say, rather unusual in the field of architecture. So I will present, as I said, in detail, 3 buildings by him, and then I'll show some pictures with his design work, which is not entirely industrial design, exactly because he problematizes the design with the artistic elements that are not of a, pragmatic nature at all. Okay, so I think he is an interesting man, even the way he presents himself. I think he's a handsome man, and he looks like, at least when he was younger, like a man of the world and a fighter in a way. I like this picture of him. He likes to wear these extravagant hats, which are a little bit, undecided, so to speak. Are they for a man? Are they for a woman? There is there is something about these hats that he wears, and so this is how he is 71 years old now, and he experiments a lot. I think he's a very original creator, and has an incredible vitality and an ability to change. I mean, look at him here. He's probably around this age, which he has now, meaning around 70, 71. He's 71 today, or 72. I didn't double check. He's either 71 or 72 today because he was born. But look at his hat, it's a little bit old fashioned, and is hand woven, is handmade. And although he is an architect who uses very contemporary materials and so on, you say he's rather eccentric, but I like him. He's picturesque. He's interesting, and the hats, the glasses, and even the scarf. I guess in today's world, it's important also to be able to be some kind of a showman, and to attract attention, because it is a world where, it's very difficult to stand out. And so, as you can see, he is able to use his persona to, dramatize even his looks. But he's a good artist and a good builder. So he was born in 1951. So, well, this means he's actually 70 years old today. I don't know why I read somewhere he's 71. Anyway, he's 70 years old today. He's an Israeli industrial designer, artist, and architectural designer. But I think this is a little bit misleading, because we'll arrive at his designs, and you'll see that they wouldn't really easily accept the words industrial designer, and you'll understand why. They are rather artistic. I read that he's the inventor of art design, whatever that might mean. I guess designed objects that have a high level of uselessness, if I can say so. So born in Tel Aviv, Israel, to a Jewish family, he studied at this Academy of Arts and Design in Jerusalem between 1971 and 1973, so just for 2 years, and at the Architectural Association School of Architecture in London from 1974 to 1979. And apparently he graduated from there. this school continues to amaze us. If you go to Wikipedia Architectural Association and you go at the bottom of the article, you'll find a list with the alumni of this school. And in my opinion, even in the present, around 80% of those who move the architecture world came from that school, which is absolutely remarkable. It is a very, very experimental school, extremely open-minded, and it shows. It produces results, and Ron Arad benefited from studying at the school. He co-founded the design and production studio One Off in 1981 with Caroline Thorman. Then Ron Arad Associates Architecture and Design Practice was formed in 1989. And in 2008, Ron Arad Architects was established alongside Ron Arad Associates with Caroline Thorman and Asa Bruno. His brother is the violist and educator, I guess violinist, Atar Arad. Anyway, so we start with, so I show in detail 3 very important buildings by him. This is the first one, which I will come back to this sketch. These towers that he built, and you know, I mean, we know the architecture of Zaha Hadid, we know the architecture of Bjarke Ingels, but I think there are complexities here that are not at all inferior to what, for example, Bjarke Ingels does. Of course, there are many buildings today that are twisted. Even Coma twisted a few, and you know, there is a trend to twist buildings. But here there are certain asymmetries, and there is a certain hybridity that makes his towers stand out, and they are not built in a city with truly many towers. So these buildings that Ron Arad built, I think, have a personality that is distinct. You know, also he has variation. So it's not just a simple twisting like it happens with Bjarke Ingels. With Bjarke Ingels, actually, you can talk a lot about, because you realize immediately the system is kind of explicit from the very beginning. There are, once you understood the so-called concept that he used, then everything becomes almost exhausted. But here, formally, I'm talking about visually and formally. There are, for example, this building is different from this building, although it's part of the same, you know, the same configuration, architectural configuration that he generated. And so I think he's interesting. And well, the interior is, you know, is a commercial building, is, you know, it's not a temple, but I think it's well designed, you know, it's clean, so to speak, and modernity at a certain level likes clean architectural solutions. But he is able to negotiate between what is to be expected and the unexpected. And you know, he also, although he sketches manually and he likes to draw, I read, but he embraced the newest technologies fully, and it shows. You cannot build such a building, you know, if you don't know about, maybe not himself, but the people in his office. But what we see here, we see 2 kinds of buildings. One that is not really an adventure, and one that is an adventure. And I keep saying, you know, architecture brings joy when it is an adventure. When it is not an adventure, it becomes just a repetitive act, and that's it. But as I said, there are other buildings today. I even have a PowerPoint presentation with this very subject, twisted architectures. And there are other people who twist like this. But he has variations here. And you know, there are even, if you look, each floor is a little bit, I mean, the twisting creates interesting variations as you go up the building or down. It depends how you look at it. And then the way he connects, you know, two parts of the building. And so there are certain complexities here. I don't know how many tall buildings Tel Aviv has, but you know, this kind of building maybe it wouldn't be so unusual in some other cities. But in Israel, I don't think they have too many tall buildings like this. There is another Israeli architect. Well, he's Israeli now, but he was born in Poland. I talk about him sometimes, and I would gladly show his work again. Tzvi Hecker. Tzvi Hecker, who left Poland just like Daniel Lipskin did, but Daniel Lipskin went to the United States while Tzvi Hecker went to Israel. And he is worthy of being known. Quite an interesting architect. We also have a Romanian architect who immigrated himself to Israel. I'm talking about Marcel Iancu or Marcel Ianco, a man who built about 20 buildings or so in Bucharest, and who was one of the founders of the Dada movement. And I think quite a good artist and architect. Marcel Iancu, yes. But this building shows again that if there is culturalness to it, the building gains. It's important for a building to stir up visual interest. What we see here, usually, if you look even at the work of Zaha, yes, she has sometimes incredible fluidities, but you don't have variations like you see here. You know, here you see a certain way of obtaining the facade, here another one, here another one. And so there are, the system is broken, so to speak. Discretely, as a whole, the buildings do have unity. It is clearly a building or two or three buildings that together form something that has unity. But there are also these variations, like in his clothing. You saw there are picturesque elements, and here also in his architecture. And he designs everything because he's also a designer. It's not just the building. He's quite famous, actually. You know, if you search his name on the web, you come across all kinds of interviews with him, and he's considered one of the most influential designers and architects today. And again, we have to consider the fact that he actually builds, well, he built, I'll show also a building built in France, but, you know, he's not really part of the, I mean, he is located at least for some portion of the year in London, but mainly as a designer. He is not truly established as an architectural office in the United States or Great Britain or the Anglo-Saxon world. So this makes him unique also because he builds buildings that would belong possibly to the Anglo-Saxon world, but for example, this one was not built there. I mean, not this kind of building. And look at that column, you know, and you'll see another picture during the construction. Now, this kind of twisting, almost identical, you can see in Bjarke Ingels in Florida. But what you are not going to see in Bjarke Ingels' case, you know, just here, this is one kind of architecture, another one, another one, another one. So, you know, he brings together various ways of expressing the interior of the building towards the outside. And in this sense, I think is inspiring, interesting. It's also nice that, at least in the materials that I found published on Arch Daily, there is an extensive documentation. They show not just the final work, the built work, but also the process, like we see here, and also, you know, detailed drawings and so on. Because I think it is important, the process, that to realize the effort, the amplitude of what was done in order to arrive at the building. Look at these columns, you know, the conventional engineer or architect would protest, but, you know, Ron Arad built it, and you know, nature itself has all kinds of distortions, or you look at the trunks of the trees. As I said, it was an adventure building the building, and I'm glad they went through with it. They built the building. I mean, look at this fragment of the column here, or this one here. Again, you couldn't do something like this without digital technology. I mean, look at this column here. You know, and the engineers themselves, they need to verify the ability of the building to stand up, and you need for this a sophisticated technology. I like the plans. I mean, you know, you see here a certain informality. He's playful. He's serious, but he's also playful. And each part of the building or the complex of the buildings has its own distinctiveness. You know, even Kenneth Frampton told me that the computer destroyed architecture, but I don't think it's true. With all due respect, I don't think the computer destroyed architecture. And I was very surprised, actually, when I read what he wrote. Um, I think the computer is another tool, and you know, to say that the pencil destroyed architecture or that the computer destroyed architecture is, I think, debatable. I think some incredible buildings were built thanks to the computer, and you know, we cannot deny it. I mean, there are, like this building, this could not have been built with paper and tracing paper and the pencil. No, it could not have been possible. And I wouldn't say it's a worthless building. No. Now, maybe I sympathize with it because I do myself some, I didn't build, but I have many, so-called proposals or sketches of digitally conceived structures that are kind of like this, where I introduce two systems: the orthogonal one, and then the informal one using different angles. And I think in the meeting between the two, something interesting could happen. When I look at this, yes, I see the horizontality of the floors, of the slabs, but the fact that there are these, deviations from the verticality creates a certain level of movement and distortion that I think expresses well the life as it is. Life is not just horizontals and verticals. It has, it has parts which escape, an easy reading, and I think those parts need to be acknowledged and expressed. This is the model. He works sometimes. He does sketches on a digitally generated scheme or image. Then he draws on it manually, like you see here. So it appears to be spontaneously drawn or conceived, but actually there is a lot of study, it seems, that went into the making of the towers. Again, you see his sketch upon drawings that were done, produced initially digitally. And this meeting between analog drawing and digital drawing, I think, is a fruitful one. I do believe that some kind of a conjunction between the two systems is a positive thing and is possible and maybe even desirable. Even Tom Wiscombe, he said, who is very, very knowledgeable about the latest technologies, he said that lately he works towards breaking the digital somehow through negotiating between the analog and the digital. And I think, yes, there is a lot of potential there. You don't eliminate the analog, but you welcome its presence within the mechanism of drawing and imagining and modeling digitally. So you go back and forth between the manual and the digital. You can see he's a temperamental man from his drawing and even from his way of writing. Okay, now we go to the second building that I showed today, the Mediacité. Is a commercial building in Liège, France. From what I read, Liège was a very important city that produced steel, worked with steel, but then it fell into a decline, economical decline, and this building, large building, was meant to represent some kind of a rebirth. So the text description provided by Ron Arad Architects reads, they were invited to design the new mall, roof and public spaces of the 40,000 square meter mixed-use development known as Mediacité, situated in Liège, once the world's foremost center for steel production and since in economic decline, the building stands out as a symbol of the city's revitalization and strives to spearhead the city's regeneration. And, you know, here the orthodox evaluator would say, wait a minute, you know, what are these things? You know, why are they so capriciously as they are? But I continue to think that so-called capriciousness is part of life and is certainly part of the aesthetical, um, you know, actions. I think the roofing is done ingeniously. Yes, the stores, and they are typical for a mall. But it is the roofing, the ceiling that distinguishes this building from other malls. And yes, of course, it was expensive to do this, but being that Liège had its history of being so important in the field of steel production, I guess this was not inconceivable to do there. And, and in a way, it does represent some kind of architectural turmoil that signifies some kind of a rebirth. And I do think it matters. I mean, the stores and the storefront windows are as they are in any mall. So what we see here is not different from what we see in any mall in any part of, in any other country. But what is above distinguishes it from other buildings. And I think what is above does matter. Does matter because it says, it talks in a way about the otherness and the exceptionalism of a good architecture as opposed to one that does not have any ambition in the field of art or architecture or aesthetics. You know, it is in a way not a betrayal, but an enhancement of. So we have at this level commerce, that's what we have, it's commerce. But above, we have something else. It is as if Ron Arad says, yes, we need this commerce, you know, but there is something else above. And it happens that here is literally above. Otherwise, yes, it is a commercial building, clearly so. But these capricious curves do matter. They're in a way a sign of questing for freedom, breaking the system, breaking the box. And they insinuate themselves everywhere within the building. They're actually that part which here, yes, it's something else. I think this picture was taken by Peter Cook. I noticed his name as being one of the photographers of this building. I imagine is that Peter Cook, who was and still is an important architect in Great Britain. So this building is in France, in Liège, and yeah, it is a mall, but I think it has a distinctiveness which qualifies it to be, you know, more than just a commercial building. And it is exactly because of these so-called capricious elements that it has, that it obtains that status of aspiring towards something other, the otherness of architecture, is a phenomenon which transcends, you know, mercantilism. Although the building itself is mercantile, it's a mall. But look here, all this path, this is where the circulation takes place within the building is distinctively articulated architecturally, and it matters. Jeannie Gang or Studio Gang just completed or is in the process of completing a museum in the United States where she did the same thing. You know, there are volumes that are rather, you know, Cartesian, but then there is a spine, an organic spine in between rectangular buildings that creates a dynamic form and an enticing one, like here. But what we see here is, in a way, the unpredictability of what we call the unconscious. We need, yes, we have the predictability of function, of commerce, and so on. But above, we are told that there are other forces in life that are at work, and they are important too, and they should be acknowledged. And they escape strict reasoning and strict, you know, explanation in rational terms. They are also of a ornamental nature. They might be self-supporting, they might be structural, but they also are ornamental in their essence. We shouldn't ignore this. Again, the importance of what we call ornament. Mark Quigley, who was the dean at Columbia University in New York for about 15 years, he wrote a manifesto which now disappeared from the web, unfortunately, and I didn't save it when I didn't know that at one moment, sometime it would disappear. But maybe some of you might find it. I tried and I didn't, but who knows? Called Towards Turbulence or Turbulence. Well, what we see here is some kind of a turbulence. No, it's this turmoil, this formal turmoil, which is important because it stirs you up. It shows you that life is dynamic, it's not static, it's not rational, it's not only rational. So I think it's important to remember turbulences. Although turbulences when you are in a plane are not pleasant at all. I remember once I took Alitalia from New York to Rome, and I was sure I was going to die. I was absolutely sure, and everybody in the plane was equally sure, with the exception of the stewardess, especially the male stewardesses. They're extremely calm, but I had near me some livid Italians, you know, totally livid, and I was probably livid myself. We had turbulences, and the plane was falling. You know, in fact, I was so frightened that although I had the ticket, the return ticket with the same airline, I refused to take it back. I was sure I was going to die. So turbulences are not always welcomed and pleasant at all. But here, you know, you are safe. You are safe on the horizontal slab of the building. It's just above at a certain level of, although there is order there too, but a different kind of order. We can criticize technology, but the truth is, without technology, we couldn't build something like this. So not everything is bad about technology, far from it. And in fact, our very meeting here on Zoom is facilitated by technology. Without it, we would not have been able. And in fact, I am very, very grateful, truly. Imagine the pandemic was on and we didn't have the ability we didn't have laptops, we didn't have iPods, iPads, we couldn't communicate with each other. So I think it would have been much harder to have social distancing. Like this, we do have social distancing, but we can also communicate virtually. And I think we should be grateful that we have this ability now. Otherwise, it would have been much more difficult, I think. I read actually that even if the pandemic is defeated somehow, and let's hope it will happen, some schools and universities will continue to use the online teaching, even if the need per se will not be there. And I think that's a good idea. I think there are good aspects relating to what is called the online teaching. Maybe not always. In some cases, perhaps it's not a bad idea to continue with it, even when and if the pandemic goes away somehow. And let's hope it will. So you see the buildings around this organic spine are rather, conventional, and maybe not, they are not even designed by him. He did this architectural snake in between them, and that's where architecture steps in. Of course, this is done with effort and with money. It's not, but it was probably worth doing it, and it's possible. You see, in essence, this is his contribution. Maybe his single contribution, or maybe, his most important contribution. Is this betrayal, if I am to use this word, that makes architecture become architecture? Otherwise, what is around here is not architecture. But this so-called betrayal is. And I think we need such betrayals. Because you bring life in, and you bring that immeasurableness that aesthetics are supposed to externalize and make visible. But he seems to have a liking for, the last picture of this presentation will be with a bicycle that he invented, and you can see a similarity with what is happening here on the roof. You'll understand when we'll arrive at that image, and it will be the last one of the presentation. So this spine, organic spine, as I call it, is an insinuation of the natural system, if I am to use the word system, and maybe it's not completely appropriate. We have the Cartesian system here, and then we have the so-called betrayal, that is organic, that is natural, that is still made by man, but it's a different kind of, I don't know what happened to me today. I use the word system too often. Usually I'm against systems, but somehow today here I am using the word system quite often. I like this snake. If I am, or it's a kite in a way. We have the word in Romanian, smell, some kind of a kite smell, un smell brought down to earth, brought down to the level of the buildings. formally, I think, is interesting, and I think it works. It's nice even graphically. And this is the last picture with this second building, and then we'll go to the third one that he built. He's probably here in his office. So the Design Museum in Holon in Israel. So it's a design museum. And I will read a few words that their office wrote. So where they were invited by the municipality of Holon to design and develop the first national design museum in Israel. The Design Museum Holon is intended as the national platform for the presentation of design, the creation of a significant exhibition collection, the reflection of Israeli design in the context of world design, and the endorsement of the importance of design in a young, emerging state. This is the building. And it has, certain mannerisms having to do with how he works in architecture. But I still think is a building that you cannot easily ignore. Yes, it plays with a spiral, it plays with the visual, but it is it's a controlled turbulence. Maybe the word turbulence is not even totally justified. Otherwise, the interior, it is as it is. But there are these clashes, again, between so-called two systems. You see it on the left and you see it on the right. He manipulates the vertical enclosures in a nuanced way and not rigidly. Otherwise, yes, there are rooms like this, like everywhere, nothing special. But what is special is the way the building opens up in a way towards the exterior and creates, yes, it's still in a way a box, but it's not a rectangular box, and it has a certain movement. And this movement is probably indicative of the aspiration that art represents, and design as well. There are Baroque elements here, in a way he's a Baroque artist or architect or both. But it is a restrained form of Baroque, if I am to express myself in this way. Baroque in general is not restrained, but there are various shades of Baroque art. This is a modern Baroque that is here and there more explicit, and in other parts less explicit. But he has a tendency towards, even at the level of, you saw him, how he dresses. He seems to have a Baroque personality, if I am to use these words. But again, what brings interest to this building is exactly the part that is so-called useless. I mean, in terms of strict functionalism, these are useless. They are just like I keep mentioning the peacock's tail, the tail of the peacock that John Ruskin said that it was an example that in nature, what is the most beautiful is also the most useless. These are also useless in terms of a tangible or measurable or explicit function. But they have this role of an aesthetical nature that cannot be ignored and shouldn't be ignored. Although, again, I'm aware that the strict functionalists would protest. But how are we going to arrive to exuberance or exaltation if we don't have such elements? if the tail of the peacock does not exist, if the wings of the butterfly do not exist, if color does not exist. Here also you see a lot of color being used. A lot of effort went through, was necessary, of course, to build these things. But I don't think it is a failure. This effort to nuance even the skin of the building. In a way, this is what Frank Lloyd Wright did also with his Guggenheim Museum in Manhattan, which I just listened to, and I suggest to you to watch. It's a very interesting interview with Frank Lloyd Wright when he was 88 years old in 1953, 1955, and there are two interviews. One is from 1953. This one I'm referring to, I think, is from 1955. And he's extremely lucid. And he talks about the Guggenheim Museum. He says that, many critics and people thought that he looked like a washing machine, a washing machine. Anyway, again, I think I see here another example of the building as an adventure, architecture as an adventure. Now, you might like it, you might not like it, but it is an adventure. The building, as he proposed it and as it was realized, it was an adventure. These are freestanding, and they're interesting as such. You don't have columns here at all. These things are just in this formal turmoil, which is inciting, and these are not small. I mean, you see the scale here. You see a human being. These are big. They are huge almost. The plan of the building is here, and we are going to see actually the plans in detail. And then we see, as I call it, the peacock's tail, the futile, the futile turmoil. But I think we need a futility, such futilities. I mean, after all, what is the building? There is a box here, there is another box here, and they are connected through this, through the peacock's tail, through the this agitation that, and in a way, it's even conceptually valid, because imagine these are two people. Let's say this is a man and this is a woman. Let's say, or if you want the other way around, this is the man and this is the woman. Whatever. You have a couple here. You have two partners. And they need to negotiate. They have a relationship. But they cannot have a relationship without this intermediate reality which expresses the negotiation between the two. I'm tempted to interpret the plan in this way. It's in the dynamics of the relationship. You need this intertwining, which is sometimes difficult, torturous, even conflictual. But it's important to acknowledge it. Imagine we just had a prism and another prism and with nothing in between. Unfortunately, I think there are many couples like this who in fact do not deserve the word couple. They are just 1 + 1 = 1 + 1. We have, I just thought of a Romanian word, învolburare, învolburare arhitectonică. I don't know very well how to translate it in English. I kind of like the Romanian word. Anyway. We see it here too, this is the escape, and it's not just the escape, it's actually also, as I said, as I tried to say, is that intermediate reality, that in-betweenness, which is an expression of more nuanced reality, which is necessary in order to negotiate between two entities which otherwise would be separated. This is what art does, and we need art. I hope you would agree with me. We need art. We need the betrayal of art. Otherwise, life would be just like this, but it wouldn't be enough. It would be unbearable. Yeah, here you see clearly, his design museum. Now, I wrote myself industrial designer, but I don't think it's totally accurate. He was a designer, he's a designer, but I wouldn't really call him industrial, and you'll understand why. I mean, look at his, is this industrial design? I mean, yes, the material is metal, and it looks like a kind of a chair, but it's so flamboyantly designed and configured that it's closer to art actually than to design, and certainly not industrial design. Or look at this sitting. This I hesitated to call it a chair. It's an interesting idea, isn't it? But it's very artistic, and this shows his his uniqueness in a way, that he moves in between art and design and architecture with ease, and it seems he cannot make up his mind in between the three. They are not separated. This one, I don't know exactly what it is. It could become some kind of a chair, and you can bring the parts together and they become a cube. And look at this, another seat. It's not a comfortable one. It's more like a chair for the mind and for the eye than for another part of the human body. But it's interesting, and I think we need the exceptionalism of art to engage us, to provoke us. You'll see even a ping pong table that he designed, which is not flat. And yeah, I think we need a non-conventionalism, a non-conformism of art to show us other possibilities, to actually achieve freedom, freedom from necessity. Now, that freedom from necessity could provoke some pain in a certain part of the human body, if we refer to what Frank Lloyd Wright said, that he suffered from that pain because he sat for too long on his own chairs. Yesterday, I found when I watched this interview with him from 1953, you can search on it for it on YouTube. You just type in Wallace interview with Frank Lloyd Wright. That was the name of the interviewer, Wallace. I forgot his first name. And he said, I didn't know this, that he didn't study architecture because his family was too poor. They couldn't send him to an architecture school. So instead, he was sent to a kind of a technical engineering school. But from what I read somewhere else, was some kind of a drafting school, some kind of a technical school. He said that he left it 3 months before graduation, but from what I read, he left after 2 years. Now maybe he was supposed to leave after, if indeed the school he went to was just 2 years long, it means that it was some kind of a technical school. Anyway, it was the only one that he went to, and apparently the motivation was that they didn't have enough money to send him to an architecture school. But then he didn't need it, did he? I'm talking about Frank Lloyd Wright. This is another chair by this flamboyant, interesting Israeli artist, architect, and designer. Another one which is closer to sculpture than to, I mean, again, I wouldn't call this industrial design, although it's done industrially with industrial materials, a lot of metal, but it's mysteriously sculptural. And so is this one. I truly encourage architects, students in architecture, to design furniture, to go beyond just designing buildings. And many, as you know, important architects did just that. Look at this, you know, they are rather sculptures, but you can sit on these sculptures, maybe not very comfortably, but they invite interpretations and different functions somehow. Not very comfortably honored, that's for sure. He is very prolific. He does so many things. And this is his office in London. Interesting too. Here is the master. I understood he likes pens with I forgot how they are called, with pockets on both legs. The office itself is kind of nice. It has an intimate feeling and also a little bit baroque or flamboyant. And yes, now these people are a little bit crowded here, I have to confess, you know, 4 people in maybe, I don't know, 3 meters or so of desk. But anyway, he's an interesting man, and I think he does interesting work. And after all, he's only 70 today, so let's wish him happy birthday, and let's talk again about him 5 years from now, when we'll see new buildings by him and new designs. One thing is for sure, even when we look at his office, you have function and you have form, and you cannot say that form is less important than function. No, in fact, it is form that you know, agitates things and creates an interest. Otherwise, you know, what would we have in architecture and design and art? And here he is with this. I read about it, that it's a steel plate. You see, it's not horizontal, and I read that actually because of it, the movement of the ball on this ping pong table is slowed down. So here he is with his strange hat on his head, and with the ping pong. I don't know if he plays with anyone. And on this is written Ron Arad Studio. And maybe, you know, here is written in reverse, so you can see the same thing from the other side. And look even at the flooring. I imagine this is where his office is. He's playful. And this is the last image of the presentation. I read, but I didn't quite understand the technicalities of it. Apparently, this is an innovation that actually works, but it also artistic and sculptural and Duchampian, because when he was younger, he was influenced by les objets trouvés, the found objects of Marcel Duchamp. And but he created, now you see the relationship with the aesthetical or the formal relationship with what this strange will has with that roofing in that mall in France. Anyway, happy birthday, Ron Arad, and thank you for inspiring us.